Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Straight to You, a live question and answer session with officers at the Oxnard Police Department. My name is Paul Carganilla. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for Oxnard PD, and we are streaming to you live here on Facebook. It's 5:30 p.m. on the West Coast. So if you're watching between 5:30 and 6, we are live. We invite any questions that you have in the comment thread on the video, and we will get to those questions in the last half of this half hour. So if you are watching this after 6 p.m., then you're watching a replay. However, if you are with us now, we'd love to take any of your questions. We are live at the Oxnard Police Department, downtown Oxnard, on this beautiful Thursday evening. And this evening, I'm so excited to introduce you to a couple of the officers of our traffic unit. And I'll introduce them now. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Officer Adam Aguilar and Officer Oscar Toraya. Come on in, guys.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, welcome to Straight to You. This is something we've been doing since we were actually doing these interviews before the pandemic came down, but they were like one-on-one in the same room. But now we've been able to use Zoom and connect with our community in this way, kind of introduce the community to our officers and get to know you guys a little bit about your history. It's been a great tool, while we miss getting together in actual groups and meeting our neighbors. At least we do have this technology and this opportunity, and it looks like we're in 62 households right now. So we appreciate everybody jumping in and saying hello in the chat there. Luis, Layla, Rebecca, thanks for saying hi. And what we do at the beginning of these is just get to know you guys from the very beginning. And I'll go one by one. I'll start with who I believe is the senior officer of the two of you, Officer Aguilar. I always throw it back as far back as I can to the very, very beginning. And I start with Officer Adam Aguilar, born and raised
In Oxnard, here in the city of Oxnard.
Really?
Yes.
Like your whole life?
My entire life. I went to San Diego for 5 years of my life and decided to come back, and here I am.
So did you go to school here? What schools did you go to?
So I went to school in the West End. I went to Marina West Elementary. After that, I went to Van Haydock Junior High School. And then after that, I went to Oxnard High School, the best high school on Gonzales Road. Then after, immediately I went to a university down in San Marcos, northern San Diego County, where I obtained my bachelor's. I double majored in sociology and criminology, and I came back, and Oxnard Police Department hired me. Fortunate enough, I've been here for 7 years now.
Wow. So did you, coming out of high school, going to was being a police officer always something that you wanted to do, or was there something in your life that kind of planted that seed?
Yeah, actually, the K9 unit came out to my elementary. They did the whole K9 show, and I was really amazed of the K9 handlers and the actual K9, his capabilities. I was amazed, and I'm like, hey, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And during college, I kind of shied away from it. I then wanted to switch it up to like something in education, but then I decided to come back to law enforcement, and luckily I was hired.
What year was that you were hired, if I may ask?
2013.
Okay, very cool. And was this your first job, or did you have other jobs before being a police officer?
My first full-time job, yes. Before this, I had several part-time jobs. I worked with Butte County Office of Education, where I assisted migrant students in essentially schoolwork. I did home visits with them. So I was into education a lot. I was an advisor for a program called Upward Bound. Essentially, low-income students. I sort of kind of like, you could call it a role model, and encourage them to obviously go to a 4-year education, get their either 4 years or 2-year education, but nonetheless go to college and get their degree.
Wow, that sounds like a really, really fulfilling job.
And absolutely, working with our youth was one of the most rewarding experiences as far as the jobs that I had. part-time back in the day.
So you've been here for, if my math is correct, about 8 years.
Well, I got hired in 2013, so it was a 6-month academy. So I've been sworn as a police officer for 7 years. But yes, I've been with Oxnard for 8 years if we go based on hire date.
So other than patrol, is the traffic unit your first assignment, or have you done other things here?
I did collateral, was an Explorer advisor. And essentially that's pretty much it. Patrol and then traffic.
Very cool. And we'll talk more about the traffic unit and what it does after we get to know Officer Toraya a little bit. Thank you also for joining the show for both of you. And Officer Taraya, same question, born and raised?
Here in the city of Oxnard.
Very cool. And so did you move around like Officer Aguilar and come back, or have you been in the area your whole life?
No, I was born and raised here. I grew up in Colonia. I attended Ramona Heights, or correction, I attended Ramona, Juanita at that time, which is now Cesar Chavez. Went to Frank Middle School, and then I attended Oxnard High School. After Oxnard High, I went to study at Oxnard College and Ventura College, studied criminal justice there.
Very cool. And when did you have any other jobs before you applied here?
Yeah, so I kind of entered this career in law enforcement later on in life. Unlike a lot of our other officers who joined when in their early 20s. I was a business owner. I also ended up working behind the desk, which allowed me to come back in here and get off from behind the desk and do something different, which inspired me to come out and be a police officer.
Can you tell me what that experience was?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So I always looked up to my older brother. Older brother went to the military, he became a reserve police officer once he came out of the military. And I always admired him, always looked up to him. Well, back in 2011, I kind of wanted something different than just a desk job. So I decided to put myself in through a police and reserve academy here in Ventura County. That's kind of what led me and gave me the right foot forward in order to try to pursue this. I excelled in the program, really gave me a different insight in what being a police officer was about. And I really enjoyed, the 6-month program that I put myself through. So graduated in 2011 from that program, and in 2016 got hired on with City of Oxnard.
Very cool. And so have you worked in any other collaterals or any other assignments other than patrol since you've been here?
Just patrol and the traffic unit.
Very cool. And when did you start with the traffic unit?
Well, I got the position back in March. However, due to COVID, kind of delayed my training. So I didn't actually complete my post-training until July, August of last year.
And since you mentioned training, and either of you can jump in on this one, what goes into the training to be in the traffic unit, to work in the traffic unit?
So it has to do with a lot of hours of, behind the motorcycle, how to drive it. A lot of stuff is very slow speeds. So we spend weeks training, and then we have to go through some cone patterns that are required through POST, which is a training program for police officers. We have to complete these cone patterns in order for us to be allowed to be on the motorcycle and conduct traffic.
Is that tough? Did you have a lot of experience on motorcycles before?
No, so I had very little experience. I actually struggled the first 2 weeks of our pre-academy of that training. However, I stuck with it and ended up getting through it.
How about you, Officer Aguilar? Did you have any prior motorcycle riding experience?
Yes, I used to ride a lot of dirt bikes when I was younger. So I had that, but it's completely different. Riding the dirt bike itself is not as heavy as our 800-pound-ish motorcycle. So 2 different riding styles. And like Officer Toraya said, there's a lot of training that goes behind it. Roughly the what we call preschool is 80 hours of just riding. The actual motorcycle school, if you may, is an additional 80 hours. After you graduate that class, then there's an additional 2 weeks of riding with one of our senior motors here, and just kind of apply what you learned within our city limits. But through that, there's always quarterly, I would say quarterly training that we do, either riding up on the canyons and or just like Officer Toraya said, cone patterns helps us maneuver around cars, especially in a city-like environment. We know that 5 points could get very busy, and sometimes we need to get places that people need us to get there quite fast. And these types of training allow us to kind of maneuver in and out of traffic.
Something I've always wondered about, and this is not one of the questions in the chat, but how does weather affect your day to day when it's really hot during the summer, or if it starts to get colder or wet in obviously the fall and winter months? How does that, these bikes I know are super heavy, how does the weather affect the day-to-day duties that you guys perform?
Yeah, so in a hot Oxnard day, so we're talking low 80s-ish, we don't have the luxury to pop on the air conditioning in our motorcycles, obviously. So we tend to ride with the either the windshield a little bit lower, and we kind of just have to go with it. We ride with the environment. When it rains, we trade in our motorcycles. So we lose the 2 wheels and we get in a 4-wheel car. We do not ride in the rain, obviously for safety concerns.
All right. And we talked a little bit about the training for being within the traffic unit. Can you just kind of clarify, break down how the traffic unit is different from regular patrol?
Yeah, so a unit here in the agency, you normally start off in patrol, if not, in fact, all the time you start off in patrol. And any additional thing you want to do, whether it be detectives or a special enforcement unit or canine unit, school resource, traffic, they're all independent units. So you have to apply to get into one of those units. Since we're talking about traffic, you have to apply to get into traffic. There's a selection process, interview process, where essentially the people that apply get selected and you are brought into the unit. Through that is the training that we receive. You enhance your training by taking different classes. In our case, we deal, unfortunately, a lot with DUIs. So both myself and Officer Toraya are drug recognition experts. It's another rigorous course that we take, over 80 hours of training to identify impaired drivers. So we essentially take training that's catered to our position. So in our case, we look for impaired drivers, individual speeding, et cetera, and so forth.
And what is the schedule like for the traffic unit?
We kind of make fun of this all the time. It almost seems like we're here 7 days a week, but our actual schedule is 4 day. We work 4/10s.
4/10s, for anyone who may not know the lingo, is, I think you need to move around a little bit in that room. The lights turned off.
There you go.
There you go. For 4 10-hour shifts a week.
That's correct.
Is what you're set to work, but oftentimes there's a lot more involved.
And if I may, Paul, just since we're on that topic, the reason that Officer Toraya said that is that the agency receives a grant through the Office of Traffic Safety, and this grant is specific for specific things that that our city needs, for example, or city needs to fulfill. For example, some of these things are checkpoints. So the checkpoints are funded by the Office of Traffic Safety. Additional saturation patrols. This is in addition to our normal duties. This is extra enforcement, extra enhanced enforcement to address issues that our city has. And this is supplemented by the funding, as I mentioned, by the Office of Traffic Safety. So this is in addition to our regular 40 hours a week.
So I think you might be talking about something that Jose asked about earlier in the chat about creating special task forces for finding modified cars or street races or meetups. That's not, we hear fairly often, well, why don't you go after the drug dealers and the gang members? Where a lot of, the community doesn't realize that all of that work is still happening, but this is something that is actually funded from the state.
Yes, yes, correct. So this is supplemental, extra, hence the checkpoints, extra saturations that we have on weekends to look for impaired drivers, extra saturations that we have throughout the day to focus on school safety, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety. These are national campaigns, and by national, I mean the nation, that we kind of coincide with and participate in. And this is possible through that funding.
Gotcha. And so I guess I knew that like the checkpoints and the special like street racing stuff was all funded through those grants, but I guess I didn't realize that there's also different pedestrian and bike saturation. Now, when you say saturations, that just means there's more of you out than normal, right?
You could call it like enhanced enforcement. For example, one coming up, a national campaign is Distracted Driver. That's in the month of April. And again, the nation is participating. So will the Oxnard Police Department Traffic Unit. And we'll be looking for a distracted drivers. So people on their phones, people putting makeup on, people eating and driving unsafely. This is extra enforcement we'll be adding on our roadways to, again, coincide with the national campaigns. This doesn't mean that we don't do this on a daily basis. There's just extra personnel on board to help with these issues.
Now, you just briefly touched on something that I was really curious about, because as my position in the department, I'm a civilian employee of the police department. I'm not a sworn officer. So, I used to work in dispatch. So I know a little bit about what goes on out there. But my focus as the community affairs manager is, creating connections within the community and also on social media. And we do get a lot of questions on social media about what can and can't we do on our phone or while we're driving. Can you clear up what exactly counts as distracted driving?
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, Officer Troy, or do you want me to answer?
No, I got it. So basically, as far as when you're driving, you got to be hands-free of your cell phone. You can't be texting, can't be talking, can't be watching any videos. You can't be looking at the time. When you're stopped at a stoplight and you're not moving, it also applies. You have to be hands-free of your phone as long as you're on the roadway.
And these, the law is changing with that. There's an assembly bill that went through this year. Usually cell phone violations, I'm going to use this vaguely, usually, they're not a point on your record. However, starting mid this year, if you get two cell phone violations within 18 months, that is going to be a point on your record. So that will affect your DMV driving record, may affect your insurance rates. And this is something that legislator passed. So normally these were not moving violations, but now they will be. So that's very important. That's something that's changing this year.
So that's a lot of people say, well, I listen to my music from my phone. It's not, I don't listen to satellite radio. I listen to YouTube music playlists. So maybe I have YouTube going on my phone, but I'm not watching videos. Is that allowed?
So what I normally tell people that I drive that don't have any face mounts onto their dashes, I normally recommend for them to get a face mount. What the law does allow you to do is you're able to touch and you're able to swipe your phone from that mount. Whether you want to change the music or you want to answer a phone call or put the whoever you're speaking to on speaker, you're allowed to do that as long as you're swiping and you're touching. The whole point of this is to be hands-free in order in case you have an emergency and you need to maneuver out of the way, you're able to do so.
Great.
Just real quick, to elaborate on that, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
To be detailed on that, if you are playing, I love YouTube, I love music. So if you are playing a video and the driver can see that video, whether it be on the dash, somewhere affixed to the front compartment of the vehicle, and the driver has access to view that video, that is a violation. The driver cannot watch any type of video, even though it's a music video, while driving. So if this means turning the phone upside down in the center console, so be it. It just has to be out of view because we don't want that distraction to happen.
Gotcha. Host Sway Torres asks in the chat here, I ride a lot in the city on a bike. What's the best way to stay safe? What are some bicycle safety tips?
So bicycles are governed by the same laws that vehicles are. So believe it or not, a bicycle when you're riding needs to be treated as a vehicle. What I mean by that is when you approach a stop sign, you need to stop. When you're technically turning, your turning movements need to have some type of turn signal. A turn signal could be a hand gesture. You need to ride on the right portion of the roadway, in the bike lane and with traffic. So just kind of think about it as your mobile two-pedal car-ish. So just like a car.
And a lot of our residents, obviously, we have a lot of bicycle traffic here in the city, but also with in classroom learning starting up in schools, a lot of kids ride their bikes to schools. Do you have any general tips? I know obviously since with everything that's gone on this past year with the pandemic and everything, all the distance learning and everybody being at home for so long, sometimes it's easy to just it's never bad to get a refresher on like school zone safety tips and any kind of guidance there.
Yeah, so we just want to remind everybody that especially in school zones, obviously school zones have a posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. However, if you are seeing people walking on the streets or people on bicycles, that you reduce your speeds in order to keep our roadways safe. Also, it's very important that due to the COVID pandemic and all of the extra screenings that the schools are going to have, that you make sure that you arrive early in order to drop off your kids. That way, if there's any delay, you'll be able to get to your destination after dropping off your kids with enough time to get there. Adam, you want to touch more on that?
Yeah, so just when it comes to crosswalks and actually crossing guards, we want to respect the pedestrian. The pedestrian, for the most part, will always have the right of way. These crossing guard violations are something that we focus on because most importantly, we want to recognize that it's students, it's kids out there. We need to keep them safe. They trust us as adults to be responsible. So let's be responsible. So for example, when you're approaching a crosswalk and a crossing guard is present, you need to allow that crossing guard and students to reach a place of safety. So what is considered a place of safety? That would be a sidewalk because again, kids, right? They have a lot of trust in us. They're going to trust that, hey, the crossing guard is in the middle of the road. I'm going to trust that crossing guard that they're going to keep me safe. So if we have vehicles either on whichever side, either the opposing side or approaching from another direction, not respect that, there's a kid that can cross the street without thinking that car's going to go through. So what the point is that once the crossing guard is in the middle of the intersection, they pretty much control the entire intersection until they, along with the students, are off that road. So again, meaning that they're on the sidewalk. When the crossing guard is not present, as long as you're not gonna impede or, impede would be proper, impede the motion, I guess would be a proper word, of the student or parent, then you could go. So in that case, if you are from let's say you're coming southbound and the kids are in the northbound lanes, you can make a right-hand turn, left-hand turn, as long as it's safe to do so.
And that kind of really touches on Pedro Medina's question. He asked, what is the law when it comes to pedestrian crossings? He heard one police officer say, as long as you yield to them, you can cross the line with your vehicle. But I think the overarching question that I get from that is, are there different rules or regulations, laws in school zones than just regular any other crosswalk anywhere else in the city?
Yeah, that would be the crossing guards. So the crossing guards are only in school zones at or near them. So crossing guard is its own kind of section, and that's within school zones. And then you have your regular crosswalks, and that's what I commented on earlier, is that as long as you're not affecting their free flow movement and they're allowed to go freely, like they don't have to jump out of your way or stop for the car not to hit them. As long as it's safe, you're allowed to go.
All right. Well, we've had a lot of questions here tonight. Thank you, everyone who has joined us. And it looks like a lot of them are about the modified vehicles and probably what we posted about yesterday. And I thought we already answered this question earlier about how the extra enforcement or the special, I'm sorry, I don't remember the term that you do from the OST.
Just, enhanced enforcement or saturation.
Enhanced enforcement, that was it. Yeah.
It's just, again, extra patrol personnel, extra officers focusing on specific issues that the city's having. This is provided and made possible by the Office of Traffic Safety. I think that kind of answers the question, unless there's more questions in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a lot of them are just about the modified vehicles and why we have that focus on them from time to time.
It was in order to address community complaints is why we do these saturations. I know there was a post yesterday that got a lot of attention about unsanctioned meets, and these unsanctioned meets were brought to our attention by community members. People were doing burnouts near residential areas. People were out there drinking in residential areas. People were urinating in public at these events. These were concerns that were brought forth by the community to our unit, and we're addressing some concerns.
All right. And just like that, it's almost 6. So in the last few minutes of these, I always like to do like a rapid fire, a little bit more lighthearted, getting to know you questions. We'll just go with each of these questions. We'll start with Toraya, we'll go to Aguilar, and we'll just hit a few of these before we're out here at 6 p.m. All right. Favorite food to order out, Officer Toraya?
Ceviche.
Nice. Aguilar?
Topper's Pizza.
All right. Nice. Favorite food to make at home?
Some steak.
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Chicken Alfredo.
Favorite thing to do on a day off?
Spend time with the family.
Ditto. Spend time with the family.
First car?
I had a '88 Ford Bronco.
What color?
Brown.
Nice. Aguilar?
Black 1997 Ford Mustang.
Very cool. I got one more from the chat. I just can't resist this one from Josue Torres. What product does Officer Aguilar use in his hair?
Suavecito pomade.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Officers Taraya and Aguilar, for joining us. And it's been a great time here getting to know you and learning more about what you do in the traffic unit and hearing about all the tips and traffic safety information that we need to be reminded of from time to time. And thanks everybody for taking some time out to get to know your Oxnard police officers. Have a great night, and we will see you on the next Straight to You live Q&A right here on the Oxnard Police Department Facebook page. Have a great night.
Thanks, Paul.